It all started on an ordinary Tuesday when I noticed something strange. My front gate, which I custom built and programmed myself, suddenly wasn't responding the way it should. At first, I thought maybe it was a glitch or a power issue, but then I checked the firmware, and someone had tampered with it. That's when things got weird. See, I live in a quiet neighborhood governed by a pretty strict HOA, and there's this one lady, let's just call her Karen. If you've ever scrolled through entitled people stories on Reddit, you already know the type. She's always complaining about trash bins being out 5 minutes too long, measuring grass height, and now apparently messing with personal property she doesn't understand. Turns out, Karen decided my asterisk gate was too aggressive looking for the neighborhood vibe and took matters into her own hands. The wild part, she somehow convinced the HOA board to give her access to the shared tech console. Big mistake. What she didn't know was that I wrote the firmware from scratch and installed custom security triggers. And let's just say, the gate doesn't like being messed with. At this point, I was torn between being furious and kind of impressed, until the system logs showed what she really did. That's when it got personal, and that's where everything started to unravel. So, I dove into the system logs, trying to figure out exactly what Karen had done, and that's when I saw it: unauthorized remote access from a shared HOA IP address, right around the time my gate started acting up. She didn't just poke around, she uploaded her own patch. Now, this wasn't just annoying, it was dangerous. The firmware controls everything from motor speed to the safety sensors. One bad line of code, and someone could have been seriously hurt. That's when I knew this wasn't just about the gate's appearance, it was about control. Now, let me give you a bit of background. I'm not just some guy with a fancy gate. I'm a software engineer, and this system was my side project, something I designed to be both smart and secure. I'd put in months of work, coded every feature myself, even added voice control and AI-driven routines. It was personal. So when I realized someone had the nerve to rewrite part of it without asking, and then blame me for the gate malfunctioning, yeah, that hit a nerve. Meanwhile, Karen had already started spreading rumors around the neighborhood group chat, calling my gate a hazard and claiming I was violating HOA design rules. But she didn't know that I had screenshots, logs, and a secret kill switch she triggered without even knowing it. The real trouble began when the HOA scheduled an emergency meeting on my birthday of all days. I got the notice slipped under my door, passive-aggressive style, with a printed photo of my gate attached. Big red circle drawn around the camera sensor, like it was some sort of weapon. At this point, I knew Karen had gone full HOA vigilant. The email thread she started was already blowing up, filled with complaints from neighbors I'd never even spoken to. Most were clearly just going along with her to avoid conflict, but a few were suspiciously detailed, like someone had shared internal system screenshots. That's when it hit me. Karen had probably saved access to my gate even after the firmware update. I checked the cloud backup logs. Boom, she had copied the system diagnostics to a personal drive during her so-called inspection. But here's where it gets even more twisted. I found a snippet of her altered code. She'd tried to reroute the gate sensor to open only during daylight hours, claiming it was for the children's safety. Except, the way she did it, the gate would have randomly frozen mid-motion if it lost sunlight input. That wasn't just meddling, it was reckless. Meanwhile, one of my quiet neighbors, an older guy who always nodded politely but never spoke, pulled me aside at the mailbox. He told me he saw Karen meeting with an 8 guy in her driveway days before the firmware incident. That's when I realized she didn't act alone. I couldn't shake what my neighbor said. An 8 guy showing up just days before my gate went haywire. That wasn't some random coincidence, so I did some digging. I went through the HOA meeting minutes, public maintenance logs, anything that could tie Karen to someone with enough tech skills to pull this off. And there it was, buried in a budget approval form, a line item for Community Access Consultant Services, paid directly to a small tech contractor, located 2 blocks away from Karen's house. It all started to click. I couldn't shake what my neighbor said. An 8 guy showing up just days before my gate went haywire. That wasn't some random coincidence, so I did some digging. I went through the HOA meeting minutes, public maintenance logs, anything that could tie Karen to someone with enough tech skills to pull this off. And there it was, buried in a budget approval form, a line item for Community Access Consultant Services, paid directly to a small tech contractor, located 2 blocks away from Karen's house. It all started to click. The next few days were tense. I acted normal, waved at neighbors, attended the HOA meeting, even smiled at Karen like nothing was wrong. But behind the scenes, I was gathering proof. I set up a second hidden logging system inside the gate's core controller. Every ping, every failed login, every remote command. It was all being tracked now. And then boom. I caught another breach attempt. This time at 2:13 a.m., remote command issued to lock gate open indefinitely. But my new logging system didn't just track it. It traced the command right back to Karen's IP address. At this point, it wasn't just about the gate. It was about someone crossing a serious line, using HOA authority to justify personal revenge. The system had a backup override built in, one that would alert my phone if a specific trigger sequence was used. And at exactly 2:17 a.m., that alert went off. So I grabbed my phone, quietly slipped on a hoodie, and headed outside. What I saw at the gate made my heart start racing. I stood there in the dark, heart pounding, watching the faint glow of a tablet screen just beyond the edge of my driveway. Someone was crouched near the gate's control panel, hood up, fumbling with a cable. At first, I thought it was Karen, but as I got closer, I realized it wasn't her. It was a younger guy, maybe late 20s, clearly not from the neighborhood. He didn't notice me until I stepped into the motion sensor light. That's when he bolted, dropped the tablet, and ran straight toward the side street. I didn't chase him. I didn't have to. I already had what I needed. The tablet he left behind was still unlocked, screen frozen on a remote firmware utility. I recognized the interface. It was the same third-party software I'd seen in the HOA's budget doc. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just Karen pushing buttons out of spite. She'd actually hired someone, paid a tech contractor, to override a system she'd barely understood, all so she could control who came in and out of my private property. I checked the logs on the device, and there it was, dozens of unauthorized access attempts. But the wildest part, a schedule. Someone had programmed recurring commands to auto-open the gate during peak hours. It wasn't just about me anymore. This was about controlling neighborhood traffic. Cameras, delivery trucks, even dog walkers were being tracked. My gate had become part of some bizarre surveillance setup, and I had no idea how deep it went. The next morning, I walked into the HOA meeting holding the tablet like it was Exhibit A in a courtroom. Karen was already seated at the front, wearing her usual smug expression like she owned the room. I waited until the usual noise died down, then calmly plugged the tablet into the projector the board uses for budget reviews. The room went quiet fast. I pulled up the logs. Every unauthorized access, every command. Time-stamped, location-tagged, and tied directly to the software she paid for using HOA funds. Then I showed the camera snapshot, grainy but clear enough, from my gate's motion sensor. It wasn't just the guy I caught last night. There had been *3* different visits, and Karen's car was visible in the background in 2 of them. She tried to play dumb at first, said it was for community safety, and that the gate blocked visibility, which made no sense. But when I scrolled to the part of the code she approved, where it scheduled open access during peak delivery hours, things turned. People started whispering. One of the board members stood up and asked if she had ever gotten permission to install this. She hadn't. By the end of the meeting, Karen was suspended from the board pending an investigation. The contractor's name was flagged, and the HOA was forced to issue a formal apology. But here's the twist. 2 days later, I received an anonymous envelope in my mailbox. No note, just a flash drive. On it, backup copies of other gate systems around the neighborhood. Turns out, my gate wasn't the first one she tried to reprogram. It was just the first one that fought back. After I reviewed the files on the flash drive, it became clear Karen had been trying to extend her control beyond just my house. Several neighbors' smart gates and garage systems had been accessed or logged through the same network. Most of them didn't even realize it. I shared what I found privately with a few of them, and let's just say the next HOA meeting had record attendance. Karen didn't show up. The HOA quietly replaced the shared tech contractor and added stricter rules around who'd access anything related to private property systems. As for me, I added even stronger encryption to my gate and set up alerts that now ping my phone, watch, and laptop the moment anything odd happens. I also gave the system a slight upgrade. It now politely greets people it recognizes and ignores everything else. Smart Gate 2.0. Looking back, this wasn't just a story about a rogue HOA member or an entitled neighbor. It was about boundaries, digital and personal, and what happens when someone tries to cross them without understanding the consequences. So, if you ever build your own smart tech, especially in an HOA neighborhood, remember this: always know your firmware better than your neighbors do.